Day. All right, welcome friends. It is week 6, day 2, meaning that we've got today's class and tomorrow's class, and then the exam is live. Yeah, there's a lot to do. We're gonna continue what we're doing. I have shifted our project a little bit because I wanted to reflect more of the exam. I think we were getting a little bit in the weed on some stuff that aren't going to be on the exam. And so I didn't want to distract and stress you out. So I created a wireframe similar to what we've done that can build off that, but it's much more similar to the exam. So just as a little bit of housekeeping, we've got some discussion posts due Sunday. I'm like a broken record with that. I tell you all the time. You've got 3 core assignments this week. Now, one thing I do want to note is next Monday is an official check-in day. And so, you know, I sent out an email earlier that talked about your assignment status. Basically, either remember you have to have completed 90% of all core assignments up to week 5. So there's 11 of them. So you have to complete 10 of them. But on Monday, there still will be an official check-in. So if you just bypass project manager 1, 2, and 3 this week, then that might put you on probation. So just be aware of that. Just want you to really not get caught off guard because, oh, it's exam week and I'm stressed, which I fully understand, but make sure that you do the core assignments, or at least you do enough to get you in between the kind of area to where you don't go on probation. So that would be 14 total assignments are due by Sunday. That would be 100%. So, do the math there. Again, I sent out an assignment status email today, basically just went through, did a recheck to see how many assignments each of you have submitted. And so you got one of 2 emails, basically, that you're in good standing. So all good to go, meaning that Friday morning when I send out that exam code that you will receive the email, all good to go. One thing I do want to point out is if you received the missing materials, I think is what I titled it. If you received that email, that's okay. That's not a ding on you or anything like that. It just more so is to let you know that you have to, have these before I can give you a code. That's just part of our student SOP. So please know that it's not a choice that I have, right? It's from Coding Dojo. And make sure you do that by Friday morning. If you do it post Friday morning, I'm going to check in the morning before I send the email, probably around 8 or 9 a.m. PST. So if you're on the East Coast, you got a little bit more time. I'm going to send it then. I'm happy to send it later on too. Like I'm happy to email you that, but just know that I am not going to be checking every hour. Have you done your assignments? Are you up there? I'm not going to do that. So if you do, like if you decide, okay, Friday, I am going to do it. If you by 4 p.m. PST, as long as you email me and say, hey, I've done that. You have to email me again. I'm not going to check again at 4 o'clock and then send out and say, oh, I saw that you did that. So just email me if you have completed it. And then by that time, and I can send you a code. Unfortunately, if you email me on a Saturday, I'm probably not going to answer it. Because I'm a human too, and don't work every single day. So please just be prepared for that. And I don't want you to get stressed out, but by 4 p.m. PST, again, if you're on the East Coast, it's like 7 p.m. Then make sure anything past 9 a.m., then make sure you actually email me and let me know you've completed assignments and I can go check and do that. So cool. Okay, that's a lot that we have talked about. There is just a little bit about belt prep. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about expectations, really kind of give you a layout of what to expect, what we can do, where we can go, X, Y, and Z from there. Now, that'll be tomorrow, so don't worry about it. I do want to note, I was looking at the exams today and deciding which ones to give you. I had said something that is untrue now. I picked an exam that does not have login and registration, even as a black belt. So if you were stressed about, I have to do this, or unfortunately, if you were depending on this as a black belt, that's not going to be part of it. It's not even going to be a black belt thing. So you can kind of throw out the login and registration for right now. Now, there are other exams. Let's say you don't pass this first one, you need to do a retake. I might give you one that has a login and registration. So I'm not saying just throw that out. We're going to go over it in class, but for this exam, don't, pre-build the login and registration because that's not at all part of any of the wireframe. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up there. Didn't want you to do extra work and then me give you an exam and you'd be like, what the heck? Why is that? I did all this work and it's not even there. Again, we'll talk about what to, if you want to go for a black belt, a red belt, or an orange belt, what do you have to do, all of that stuff. We'll talk about that tomorrow more in depth. I do want to jump into class. We have quite a bit. I expect to go a little bit over today, which is okay. And if you can't make it, or if you have to have a hard stop at 6 p.m. PST, that's okay. Hopefully not, but we've done a lot of the legwork, kind of the harder stuff. So that was that. Great. One thing to note is I've created this wireframe because this is gonna mirror really the exam. I probably gave you guys too much of similarities, mirror the exam. And so I want us to focus on this. So we're going to take our information. We've already done some of this. We've already created this create player. But what I want to do is I want to do this compared to Team Manager. I just felt like Team Manager had some sort of nuancy things that are good to know. And maybe we can continue to build Team Manager, in the next classes, in the next couple of weeks. But this is going to really resemble the exam much, much more. So again, I didn't want to get caught up and us be stressed and have to do extra stuff. And then you kind of get there and be like, wow, this looks like nothing like the exam. Why did we even do that? So I wanted to create this just to go over it a little bit. There's a couple things that are different. So here we still have our dashboard. I just called it basically Team Manager. It's okay. If you remember in Team Manager, there was like the list and then the add player, and then there were different weights and stuff like that. That's not going to be part of the exam. So something similar to this, really, it's just this CRUD functionality, right? So can we create a player, which we have already showed that we can do that. Can we edit a player? Can we show a player dashboard, right? Basically just retrieving one thing from the database, and can we show it? And then can we just show everything from the database immediately? And then we have some actions like to delete or edit. And so from there, and I threw in some, these aren't black belt stuff, but this is exactly how it's going to look. I use the same tool that we used to create our exam. So it should mirror almost the exam. And these are not black belt stuff. These are just things I think would be good to know and kind of get you thinking about, well, what might be on a black belt, what might be some of that stuff. When you edit and you pull in that user or that player that you want to edit, can you pre-populate the information from the player that we're editing? So once it gets to this page, it already has their name and preferred position. Or when you're creating a player, do we have validations on the front end and the back end, which we talked about yesterday, and that's what we did. So just wanted to lay that out. This will be available. I'll push it to GitHub, and then you'll have this. So if you're wanting to build this on your own or try to work ahead, that will be available. Any questions from me before we just jump in and get started? Okay, let me get my servers running and we'll just jump in and we will do the dang thing. So yesterday we really just focused on the form, right? And we got a little bit caught up on validations and building validations, which is okay. That's fine. But now we can do a few things, and we can kind of look at that code, and then we'll kind of talk and build forward, and then make a plan on what do we want to do next. So here is my application, right? So we're in the main app. We have add player. That's okay. That's cool. We'll handle that routing. Right now, what I want to do is I just want to get certain things up and running, right? And so what we're wanting to mimic is this, right? So really our landing page is going to be this team manager. So that if you see there's just localhost API players, this one's supposed to be player/create and player/edit. So one thing we do is we're going to handle that. We're going to use React Router to do that. We're going to use links, but first and foremost, let's actually build this component out. So what I have is I've got where'd that go? Oh. In my components, I've already got my player form. That is my entire form, just to kind of go over what we did. We had our form, right? We had different things that we could do. We added this a little bit later. This was just an errors. So if we were talking about front end and back end validation. So if you didn't get to stay for that, this is newer code. basically we were talking about how it's really important to actually validate your material before you ping your API, before you ping your actual database. And the point is because some of these databases are often, especially in the cloud, are usage based, right? Meaning that the more we ping it, the more we end up costing our company because, or more our users ping it, the more it costs us because of our usage. And so what this will allow us to do is by having a validator here, it'll prevent somebody from like spam hitting our database. And then all of a sudden we, have this massive bill, but this validator prevents that. And so all we did was basically create this validator and say, hey, if the name is less than 2, then we return false. Basically, don't even ping my API. If my preferred position is less than 2, then ping false as well. Don't even ping my API. Other than that, it will do that. And we also talked about how we could have these set errors. If I wanted to build this out, maybe we'll build it out tomorrow. I'm not quite sure because I want to make sure we get everything done. It's not really necessary. That in here, maybe this errors is a name and position. They have a key of name and position. And so then whenever we are here, we can not just return false, but in there we can set our errors and add in this error right here, right? And so then all of a sudden we have these errors. And I can show just above the name, I can say, hey, an errors.name, if there's a key there, I want to show that if that is a thing. So if that exists, I want to show it. If not, don't show it. And same thing, we could do the same thing with preferred position. So that way it's above each. And maybe we'll build that out here, tomorrow. So what I want to do is I want to focus on this dashboard, right? We are going to build out this guy right here. Should be fairly simple, but let's go ahead and build it out. Any questions on what the goal is and what we're doing here? What do you guys think? Should we build out this main dashboard or should we do this guy right here? What do you think? What would you do?
I would start with the main dashboard.
Main dashboard? How come, Christopher?
I don't know, just psychologically, it just makes sense for me to start if like that's gonna be the home route to
Yeah.
just have that up and running. Plus, it's just gonna house all of our players anyways.
Totally.
And then yeah, so that's how I do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to start thinking about it. What you can also do, and something that I would encourage, is for the exam, if you make it look like this, like I would, and what we'll do is we'll focus on, okay, let's make it resemble this. And then if there's some functionality in there, like, okay, I don't quite know how I'm going to do edit player yet, but I know that I can get Lola Bunny and this up and running, then that's fine, right? We can handle that. We can do that. Same thing here. So, right, if you want to handle this delete is a button. So once it clicks it, it should in theory delete this from our table. So cool. I do also want this to be a little bit more of a, us building it together. Yesterday was just a lot of me talking, a lot of me trying to get through the form. Now that it's a little bit more simplified and we have today and tomorrow to build this stuff out, this one should be the easiest page other than just this functionality, but that's just a link to here. So we should be able to get maybe these 2 done today. And then I'm hoping maybe tomorrow we do this and some other functionality too. So I want you guys to help me build this. So we're coming here and we're going to say, player dashboard .jsx. Cool. I'm going to say RAFCE. Perfect. And then now what am I going to do? Right? There's a couple things that I'm going to have to use. I'm going to have to bring in. If we're looking at this, should really just pull this up here. If we're looking at this, there's a couple things that immediately are going to happen, right? So once it comes here, I don't have to like press a button to get all my users, right? To get all of my players. So what are some things that I could do in order to handle that?
Use effect.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great job, Robert. I'm going to use effect. So I need use effect. I need what else?
State.
Yeah. Use effect and use state. Perfect. Because I immediately want to query my database and get this information, but I need to store it somewhere, right? That way I can iterate through. And so now that I'm in that, I need to do a few things, right? First off, I'm actually going to do my state. So I'm going to say const players set players. Now, remember, just like Gray said in the office hour, Um, anytime you're wanting to iterate through. So I see that, and I can sort of anticipate, I'm going to go query my database. I'm going to grab some information. And I'm going to want to iterate through, right? I don't need to hard code all my players. I need to iterate through. And if in order for us to do that, I'm going to use map, and map is only on arrays. It's not on objects. So whenever you're dealing with this, just remember, we are going to need this to be an array. Cool. Great. So now that I've set my state and I have players and set players, I can use use effect, right? And what use effect does is it will run this immediately. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say axios.get, because I'm just getting all of them, right? And if you guys remember back from Thursday, API/players, if we did a get, that just got all of them. Then what I want to do is I'm going to take this response and I'm going to set players with my response.data. Now, just as a reminder, response.data is going to be my object that is, given back to me, or my array, sorry, of objects given back to me. And so I take that response, I run my setter, and I'm going to set that value to my res.data. I'm going to catch it. If there's an error, I'll catch it, and then I will end it here. Now, this is a big part, or this is a big thing. Just to note is we have to have a dependency array, or else we can get in that sort of infinite loop. And just as a reminder, you might because we're going to do something when it gets to delete, where then we sort of filter and or handle this, where you might say, oh, anytime players is updated, I want to run this. But as a reminder, because it's been a couple of weeks, anytime you've got a setter, you don't want your dependency array to be dependent on the state that is within your use effect. Because if I have this setter here and I say something like players, I don't even know, it'll probably yell at me. It should. What's going to happen is this is going to run anytime players is updated. But remember, I'm setting players every single time. So every single time it runs this, it's going to then go run the same thing. And we're going to get in this infinite loop. So here we just have an empty bracket. That's my dependency array. And that just says, okay, cool. We just want it to run on the first one, and that's it, right? Once we first mount this component, we want that to run. Awesome. Cool. So I'm just going to say H1 and then say in the dashboard. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and yeah, perfect. Now, what do I want to do next? What would your guys' next steps be? So we can test. If we've tested, we know that this will work, but we'll go ahead and look at this. Yeah, we need to import Axios. Great call there. I would have definitely forgot that. Perfect. What else do we need to do? What would your next step be, Bear? Sorry to cold call you. My wife would be pissed.
Your wife is gonna yell at you. So we imported Axios.
Mhm.
So we got the header, and then are we gonna
Just what would be your next step? It doesn't, we don't have to like, there's
Oh,
not
man.
a right answer. Just what would be your next step?
shit.
What?
Chris.
No, you're good. How would
Follow
we
your
do-
heart, Bear.
You're totally fine. Maybe let's just
Uh,
see, does our component work? Right? So let's go into my
Yeah.
app. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just say, hey, does this work? No, you're good. Okay. So here, we've got this H1 in main app. We've got this player form. We've got, I'm going to put, what do we call this? Player dashboard, just to see if this is even working. So we'll go to our code. Cool. In the dashboard, that's what it says. I have a terrible spelling. Sorry. I always capitalize things every single time I type. Okay. Now you guys are starting to notice something, right? That we have got quite a few different things going on in my app.js, right? Where I have got the, now if I'm showing this, it's showing my form, and it's showing my other component, and it's showing this H1. So what is something we can do to start managing all of these guys and only showing these components when we want these components to be shown?
Modulize, like with the,
What about, what is the tool? So remember our installs, we did Axios. And then, yeah, somebody's got, a couple people got it. What about our routers? Right, our React DOM router. We need to be able to route and say, okay, I only want to show this component when it is API/players. When it is API/players/create, then I want to show my form, right? And so what I can do is actually come up here and say import, I think it's router, yeah. Router from reach router. Then instead of just plugging every component in, I'm going to delete this. Oof. I'm going to put router, right? And then I'm going to say player form is not players new. Now that's something that is API/players/create. Remember, because our actual server, if we come here. Oops, wrong one, sorry. Yeah, we have this API. Oh, we just have actually API players and it's a post. But I want to, I'm going to do API/create. Because this, though this is a post route, right? Our backend can handle that, but our front end just needs to know, well, where am I going to go? So I'm going to call this API players create, and just know that in the actual belt exam, you are going to get the routes that you're supposed to have. Perfect. Cool. Great. So we have our player form and it's only going to go when it's API/players/create. And then lastly, I've got my player dashboard and I want this as API/players, right? API/players. So now only once the, we hit those guys, will it show my components? Let's go test this. Just give me an error. Reach router. Oh, it's React router DOM. Sorry. Reach router is what we used to do. Okay. Anybody have any ideas?
We have to import the browser router routes and route from React router DOM.
Yeah. Yep. So, let's do this. Cool. So then now what am I going to do, Chris? So sorry, I was doing the React router. Sorry about that. Or React reach router. That's what we used to do. My bad.
Well-
See, I even messed up. What? Yeah.
I was gonna say, you still need to import routes and route, right?
Yeah.
And then you would just wrap the lines 20, well, basically everything inside the div you can wrap inside browser router, or I think you liked to put browser router around the app.
In my app date in my index.js, right? So here I need to import browser router. Now you could do either. I like to do it here just because it makes sense to me. Perfect. Cool. Okay, let's get rid of that. Cool. So we brought in browser router, right? So I actually don't need that here. And then what am I going to do here? Is this going to be routes?
You would change
Those
that
are
to
people.
routes.
Yeah. Ooh. Routes. Perfect. And then what? Anything else?
Yeah, and then you would put all of your components in a route element.
Like this? just like that.
But you have to put element equals.
You have to do what? I'm sorry. I'm just letting you guys sort of lead me here. Route element equals. Perfect. And then we have our player form. Just like that.
You have to add the carrots.
Okay. Now we're good. Yeah. It's not
And
liking
you just
that.
need the / after form.
We're at.
In between the M and the caret, you need the /
Right there. Yeah. Because that makes it a self-closing tag.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry about that. We were using React. I was using React Reach Router. So yes, back to this for our route. Sorry about that. We have a couple things, right? We want to bring in browser router. And so I do it here in my index.js right there, right? And that just covers my app. You can do it within your app.js if you wanted to. You can totally do that. I do it the other way. Either one is going to work right here. Now here we're identifying our routes. We're identifying our routes. And then we're saying we have a route, the element. So what component do I want to render when this, when this path is called? It's going to be player form. And when this path is called, I want to go to player dashboard. Perfect. Now let's go test it. So here I've got localhost 3000, nothing's happening. So if I say API/players, let's see what happens. Cool. It says in the dashboard. Awesome. Now what if I said /create? Awesome. So now our routing is working, right? And now we're able to handle and start differentiating between each of our components. Perfect. Great job, guys. Thanks for walking through that. Okay. So now that we have that sort of handled, let's walk through and say, okay, we've now been able to grab this data, right? Or we're able to see some data maybe potentially. We're setting our state. Now, one thing I noticed is we've got state here. We have use effect, and then we have use effect in our app.js. Is this necessary? Here it is. Now, if we're lifting state, that will be a necessary thing, right? If I want to distribute this to multiple components, I can do that. Or in theory, I could just pass in the information here, right? But anytime I go to my API players, I just want to grab that information. So for right now, let's just focus on having it in my player dashboard, in my component that I want it to render, right? Because that allows us a little bit more functionality. And there's nowhere here that we see that we need all of our players again, right? So really this query only exists within this component. So we're going to keep it there, right? And the state of all players is only going to be there. Cool. Great. So now that I have this, let's actually build out what this is going to look like, right? So we see that we need a table. So let's look up some table. So HTML table. Let's look up. Cool. So we got this table. This is also an add-on called grepper. If you guys are curious why this showed up and yours doesn't, it's a free thing on Google Chrome, just like this. And it just automatically will bring up code. It's kind of nice. You always want to check it, right? Because I make mistakes. Grepper makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, even ChatGPT 4, which is unreal. But this is a great little thing to kind of look at. And so we see that we're going to need a table. We've got a T head, a TR, some THs. So these are my headers, right? And then we have our T body. So let's go ahead and do that. So what do we want it to say? In here, we're going to have a header of name, preferred position, and actions. So let's go ahead and create a table. So I don't need this anymore. I'm going to say a table dot column medium 6 dot MX auto. I just want this in the middle. Perfect. What else did it say we needed? We need our T head. So to identify our headers. So I'm gonna say T head. Perfect. Within that, I'm saying I only have one row of headers. And within that, I've got TH. Now, one little trick you can do is you can say TH star 3, star 3, and I'll give you 3 of them. You can do that for any of the ones that you want. So we're gonna have name. We're gonna have preferred position. And also whenever you do the TH, if you automatically do tab, it'll go right to where you would think, or the TH times 3, it'll automatically go where you think you can do. So actions. Cool. Great. Let's go check it out. Let's go see what's going on. Let's come here. API players. Cool. So I've got this name, this preferred position, this action. I'm going to do a little bit of MT4, just give us a little bit of space. Cool. Perfect. This is looking awesome so far. Now I've got this information, right? I have these players. I have this, I have this players, which is a list of all my players. So what can I do for that? What can I do for that? This is what I want it to look like. Yeah, we can use map, right? I can map through our information. And for each time, so I'm going to have my body and I'm going to map and I'm going to create a new row with some pieces of information, right? So oops, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to say T-body. Then what do I need to do? Yep, I'm going to do this players.map. I'm going to say player and I. I'm going to return TR key, player preferred position, and then that's it. But we're going to do a button for this guy, but we're going to say delete. Close that up, and then we should be good to go. Cool. So let's walk through. Oh, I got to close my map. Cool. So just as a reminder, we say players and we open this bracket up right here. So we can just do some JavaScript, right? And we're going to say players dot map. Player is what we're identifying. This could be unicorn. It could be anything. I, remember, is our index, right? Is this a good thing to have? This I, is index a good thing to have here?
I mean, you're gonna need to be able to target it individually somehow, so that way you can use it for links.
Okay.
But could you have like a hidden ID?
But
just
is
pass-
I, remember, I just gives us our index position within our list, within our array.
Could you pass any
Which
ID
one?
instead?
Mm-hmm. It's exactly what we're going to want to do, right? I'm going to say player.id. Which I don't, oops, oopsies. Player.id. So I actually don't even need I, right? I just want to pass in the ID. And that's going to be huge because now what we can do is if this is some sort of link or something like that, we can click it. We have this information and we can go from there. Cool. So let's go check it out. Let's go see what we've got, what we've created. So we're here, React app, nothing's happening. No, showing this. My server's up and running. Yeah. Okay. So what I would probably do first and foremost is look at this. Okay. So we have this information. It is player underscore ID, right? Thank you, Michael. Remember, but still not showing. So let's see. Last name, MX auto. Name players.map. This is players. Use state.
Do you actually have to like separate it in your map function? Because like where you would have had index or you would have had I. You actually have to have that or no, since you're just going
You
to,
shouldn't, yeah, you shouldn't have to. I mean, I mean, we can try it. I don't think that, it shouldn't have to do that. No, that didn't do anything. Players.map. Let's see, are we getting anything in our console? No, so let's come here and inspect and see what the heck's going on and see what's in state. Okay. So players.map is not a function. Okay, we're getting a whole bunch of errors. Players.map is not a function. Why is it saying that? State, I don't need to bring in map.
Do we need to do like players.data.map or results or something like that?
No, because this dot data should be a list of objects. So we should be able to iterate through that and then hit
Can we
these.
console.log the players, the results.data to see what we're actually getting through?
Yeah, before we do anything, we just do that. Console.log. Not a bad idea. That's working now. So that tells me there's something here going on. Because when my state, so if I say set players, and I have this dependency, if I say, the minute I save this, it breaks. And it's saying .map does not work.
You have another object in there.
Hmm?
You have another object in there. If you look at your console,
Oh, it's players. So within this .data.players. I think
Yep.
that's it.
Yep.
Let's check it. There you go. Way to go, Gray. So what was happening, good little problem solve, is we were getting this .data, but this .data was actually giving us back an object. That was our big issue, right? And remember, I literally said it. I should have caught it. Where I said players.map is not a function. That should be my indicator that .map is a function. We know that, but only on arrays. And so because what was being returned was not my array of objects, which players is, as you can see, it's got the square bracket and the curly brackets. It is my actual object itself. And so when we were doing just .data, so great job, Robert, for thinking through that too. It's a great way to problem solve in your exam. When we're doing that, we're realizing, oh, okay, so we're getting this information. But there's another key in here called players, and that's the value. So once we set that to res.data.players, remember .players is the array of objects. Now everything works. And we're able to see everything. We got Sophia Smith, Megan Rapinoe, Julie Ertz, Bugs Bunny, Lola Bunny. Cool. This doesn't do anything yet. It's just there. That's okay. We don't need to worry about it. But if I were to look at this, right, you could do some sort of styling if you wanted to. Bootstrap's got some styling. If you were to give me this would be a-okay. I would not get mad. CSS is not a super heavy focus from my end. You can add it for sure, but we can see, okay, we're doing basically everything. We do need a button though that has a create player, right? So let's go ahead and build that in here. Let's go to my player dashboard. So now my table is done. And then I'm going to say button dot btn info. I'm going to say dot offset 9. What that's going to do is, because remember there's 12 columns for Bootstrap, it's going to go 9 from the bottom. I'm say create player. Perfect. Create player. Great. Now let's go check that. See what that looks like. Oop, that's too much. Let's do offset 7. Looks all right. It doesn't look super great, but T3, that's okay. Doesn't necessarily need to. I don't like that they're all the same color though. So I'm gonna call this BTN danger. Danger is gonna be red. Probably actually should be our. And this should be info. Should always have red with, or you should probably have this information. Cool. So this looks awesome. Now, if I want create player to go to my form, what is something I can do here? What's something I can use?
Is that on click?
Yeah, well, we can do on click. Yeah. So we are gonna do an on click. Absolutely. But when we on click, what do we want to click to? We can add a link, or what is the other tool that we have also created? What about our navigate to player form? Remember, we use navigate. So we can say navigate to player form, basically. Ooh, this is not what I want to do. There's a tool that we have when we're dealing with routing called navigate. So let's go pull up the Coding Dojo code to walk through it. We've got routing. I don't believe it's in routing. It's in here. Use navigate. Right. So I'm gonna have to bring that in from at the top from React Router DOM. And what I can do is I can actually just say, I want to navigate to, and then we're going to navigate to our form. So we will have an on click there, and this on click, all it's going to do is it's going to navigate to results, right? It's going to navigate to results. You could, I guess, in theory, have a link within a button, but you could just do this as well. So we're going to take this idea. We're not going to go to the results. Obviously, we're going to go to our player form. And so I'm just going to say navigate. Now, because we're doing that, we need to bring in use navigate. Port navigate from React Router. React Router DOM. React Router DOM. That's why you can't always trust good old ChatGPT. Cool. So we're going to do this. Now we can bring in and use navigate, right? But it's called use navigate. Perfect. And if we're here, we still see it's just navigate. That's fine. But navigate is this guy. So let's take this in. Perfect. Cool. So now I can navigate to, I'm going to say API / players / create. Perfect. So now once this is clicked, we're just going to navigate to this. Let's close this out. Perfect. So when I say on click, I'm going to use, what did I call it? Navigate to player form. Navigate to player form. Perfect. So now once I click this, it should navigate back and forth. Any questions on what we just did there? Remember, navigate is part of our React Router DOM. So let's go
Why'd
test
you go with navigate instead of link? Because like the notice I saw when we used navigate, it was to fill out like after you did a form for like automatic rerouting.
Yeah, there's some kind of discrepancy between putting an A tag within a button. That's kind of like what, and remember, a link just converts into an A tag when you also have the tools of navigate. Like that's what it's designed for. And so that's why I would use that. Plus we've gone over it. And so wanting to utilize those tools as well. But if you just had like a button here, like because we made it a button, then I would say use navigate. If you just had like a hyperlink up here, you could just use a link and that would be just fine.
Like we use for the players.
Yeah.
We'll use it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what we're going to use for the players, we'll just have that as a link and then it'll take us to, that player ID or whatever that is. And it'll navigate to us with that piece of information. And then we will get to their actual page. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Cool. So now this is looking great, guys. We are able to go to API/players. It is able to do this. We haven't done any sort of deletion. We can handle that if we'd like. Or would you guys like to go on to the next page or handle the kind of player page? I'll let you guys guide us. What do you think?
I mean, how long do you want to spend? Because we have like 12 minutes left, so delete's quick.
Yeah,
The
I'm
whole
gonna
creating a
go, well, I'm
page.
gonna go probably about 15 minutes over. So I'm anticipating spending another 30 minutes because then I want just edit. I want to be able to handle both of these. Yeah, so the player page will probably be the easiest. That's for sure. So let's go ahead and start building that. Cool. So we know that it's just going to be by us getting one, right? So we're just going to be able to find some information and then call that piece of information. So we got to go build everything. So we're going to have a route, right? That is going to have an element. And it's not going to be player form. It's going to be, oh, that'll be our edit. We'll keep that later. We're going to call this one player. I haven't made this yet, but it's going to go to one player. And then remember, we have API players ID. And then let's just get rid of this edit because we don't need that. We're not doing editing yet. We're going to do that tomorrow. So let's go ahead and make that component. So let's say one player.jsx. Cool. So RAFCE, we're going to build this in. Perfect. Now let's get rid of this. What do we think we're going to want to do here? What are we gonna have and what are we gonna do? I'm gonna have some piece of information, right? I'm gonna have a prop that I am able to pass through because I need to handle that with my routes, right? In my route, I'm gonna have some sort of prop because I want to be able to click on the player and I want to be able to go to their page. Now, what this page needs to inherit is what? What do you guys think?
The ID and then query the database based on the ID in order to get the information.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna have to get that piece of information. I'm gonna have to handle that and bring that in. So how would I do that? Do you guys remember? Let's focus on what it looks like first, and then we'll bring it through, I guess. We're gonna grab some piece of information. This is gonna be my props, right? Or I could just destructure here. Oops. Oops. Now let's save. Cool. So I'm gonna grab this piece of information. I'm gonna do something with it. I'm gonna say use effect, right? And I'm going to call and say Axios.get. Now I'm going to call this props.id or whatever we destructure it as, right? What I'm wanting to do is I'm going to take this information, I'm going to grab it and do a few things, right? Instead of just console logging, I'm going to need to create a const. And this is going to be one player. And then set one player, right? That's going to be equal to this object. I believe it's actually a list of objects. Cool. So I'm going to have this information. And then I can say const player or const ID equals props. Okay. So I'm going to grab this information from props, right? I'm going to create this guy. Then I'm going to be able to grab that. Then I'm going to set one player and basically get that information, query the database once this is ran. gonna grab this information. And then I'm gonna have that information. I'm gonna set one player. So in this, instead of saying this guy, we'll actually console log the res and then we'll build it out from there. And then I'll go ahead and show the information. I feel like I'm missing something though from the bringing in the variable. Anybody see what I'm missing?
Is it just because how we have it structured, we would use props instead of use params?
Yeah, that's
For
what
the
I,
idea.
that's what I was saying. I'm missing something, right? I want to use params because I want to bring in our props. That's going to be from our link. And then I'm going to use params to get my ID. So then here, I'm just going to say ID. Yeah, I knew it. I was like, this looks off. Something is off. Okay. So I'm using use params. Perfect. I'm using use params to bring in my parameter, my value that's coming in. Right. Then I'm going to, on creation, I'm going to actually say axios.get API players ID. So I'm going to grab that ID or grab my player. Right. Right now, I'm just going to console log the response. And then eventually we're going to set one player and then we'll have that information that we can iterate through. So let's just test this. I'm going to go into sorry, my brain's all over the place today.
Will, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why, in the use state, can you explain why you had the player as an array instead of like as an object?
That's a great question. I was going to map through, but it should just be an object. I was just going to, yeah, you're right. It should be an object. Yeah, because I was thinking we would map through all the pieces, but I can just call the information and say player, name, player, everything. So we could just say, you know, like great catch. So we could say like H1 is going to be one player, or name is going to be one player dot name. Yeah. And then I can do, let's see what else it means. Preferred position, and then game 1 status, game 2, game 3. That's just some information, but I can do, you know, H P tag. That's going to be say preferred position. That's going to say one player dot preferred position. Perfect. I'm actually going to change this from this to a lowercase o. Cool. Yes, this one technically was. Okay. So now I can grab that piece of information. Sorry, guys, I'm all over the place right now. I can grab that piece of information by the ID, and then I can pass that through. And we should be able to see at least some information. So let's just test this at the beginning. So one player is not defined. Okay. So now we have one player. So now what I can do is I can go into my app.js. I have one player here, but I haven't brought it in. So I'm going to say import one player. I still have an error. Use state and Axios. So I need to remember to bring in use state, use effect, use state, then import Axios. Perfect, from Axios. Great. So I'm able to get this information. Cool. If I were to say something like this, let's see if it brings up a name, position. Let's see what did we get? We got a status okay from one player. Oh, that's because we're not setting anything yet, right? So within my response, we just are console logging the response. We're not actually setting our players. We're not showing anything. So here we've got this response. In that we've got data and then player. So we can say, similar to the last one, you can say res dot data dot player. And instead of console logging, let's actually set one player. So now we get Megan and Ford. Perfect. Now I could put, you can make this like a card in Bootstrap if you wanted, but you don't have to. You can do a p tag. We can say game one status. Say 3. Two, and then we can say the same thing. And then we should have all of our information and say one player dot. We called it game one status with a couple. Perfect. I'm gonna take this. Say 2. Take this. I'm gonna say 3. Perfect. So now we're able to get all of our information. Almost there, guys. Now we just need an edit player and a delete player. Perfect. We can create some buttons by doing that. Right, so let's go to our one player. I'm just going to create a button. BTN info. This can be called create player. Actually going to do the same thing where, or no, sorry, this is supposed to be edit player. And then I have another one. It's just called delete player. Perfect. And then I'm gonna make this danger. We'll see what this looks like. Tools. I don't know that this works. No. Okay, that's fine for now. Cool. So we're able to edit, or we have our buttons that will allow us to edit or take us to the edit page, and then allow us to delete and take us to the delete page, or not delete page, but it'll allow us to delete. So let's actually handle this delete functionality. I want to handle this delete functionality here, so that way we can kind of get that going. So I'm going to say delete player. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an on click before GitHub Copilot does it. What I want to do is 2 things, right? I want to create an on click that actually calls axios.delete, and I have this ID so I can delete it. And then once that's done, I actually want to navigate back to our page for our main dashboard. So I'm going to say const delete player. This is an event because it's an on click, right? I'm going to say axios.delete, which we always want to make sure is this what it's actually called when we're building this. We got routes. We have app.delete API players ID. So if we go back to this API players ID, perfect. Dot then, cool. We can console log those. That's done. But before this is done, what I want to do is I want to use navigate. And then I want to do the same thing. Const navigate. Let's use navigate. And then I want to navigate. Ooh, that was aggressive. 2 API players. So what this should do is once it's done, it'll delete it and then it'll navigate back to our dashboard, and then we shouldn't see this player anymore. So let's go ahead, and that is, remember, our delete. So we have to put our on click there. Perfect. And then we're gonna call that delete player. Okay. So this should work. Use navigate, use navigate. Okay, we should be good to go. So delete player. Still there. But if I were to go to my database and refresh, it did work. Now if I refresh, so let's just test it one more time. This. Okay, so Sophia is now gone. So I don't know what was going on right there. Because what should have happened and what did happen the second time is once we navigated back to our dashboard, it then mounts this component, runs this, gets our players, and because we have already deleted, it gets all of our new players. And so now we're able to delete players here. And I can come, and if I wanted to, again, Rapino, and then I don't forward. You can create a player. Cool. And then if I go back, we haven't done this functionality yet. We can actually build that in right now. So that basically once this player is created, we again do the navigate. We got to build, bring in, use navigate. Import, use navigate. Yep, perfect. And then I'm going to say player form. I personally like to set all of my like variables or state up at the top, and then I handle my like functionality, and then obviously then you have your code. So here I'm just going to say navigate to API players. Perfect. Everything's good there. So let's come back here. Anybody have a new player they want to add?
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo. And then let's say he's a I don't know the position names. I know he scores all the goals.
Forward. I think we had it as forward or
Forward or
midfield.
striker.
Yeah.
Cool. So now it takes us back and then we have all of our players. Now I can do the same delete functionality, right? From my one player. I just have to say delete player. I can actually move that to also my player dashboard. And then just basically say right here on click. And then I'm going to say delete player, but there's something different that I have to do with delete player. What is it? Do you guys know?
Pass in the player ID.
There you go. Right. We have to pass in the player ID. So here I need to pass in player ID, player dot underscore ID. Oh my goodness. Dot underscore ID. Perfect. And then this is going to take in our ID. And let's see if this works. If I come here. Why did that get hammered so many times? I don't know. Okay, so that did not work. Delete player, remove this. Doesn't return anything. Oh, it just keeps navigating back. Because we don't need to. We don't need to navigate here, but we do need to do one other thing. But
Refresh the user hunt.
yeah, right. We need to refresh. Yeah, something's going on. Crazy with it. Because what we would need to do is basically filter out the player, right? So we'd make another request to filter out the player that we just had, right? And then we update our state there. But I'm a little bit more concerned with why this is just getting hammered. And I just deleted everybody. Anybody see anything?
Do you have to put that filter inside of the delete player?
We would. I'm wondering, it's like yeah, we will. But it's like it auto clicked everything. Like I know sometimes JavaScript will just randomly click a button, but it clicked every delete button. Response by returning true, but the message channel closed before the response was received.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. Wait a second. Was it the delete button?
Yeah, there's a delete button and it deleted everything.
Could I see your delete function again?
Yeah.
Can you scroll down? Oh, you have to, at the parentheses, your E callback function for your on click on line 44.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just don't. So, yeah.
Can't type for anything today. And this is the delete player ID. Okay, so let's somebody ask a question. Did I delete everything from my database? Alas, it did. This is what prevents that. Remember how at the beginning of class, that's what I was saying, sometimes JavaScript just loves to press buttons, but if we do this, it prevents that from happening. So what happened was I had all these delete buttons and JavaScript said, yep, and just deleted all of them. We love that. Okay, so let's go back to create player. Good thing we have this functionality. So we can say Lionel Messi and then forward. And it did it again. Why did it do it again?
Does it have anything to do with deleting the E inside of the function when you pass an ID?
Yeah, I typically pass to E. And then
Let's test it. It's like E. Like that? Is that what you're saying? I don't think so.
inside the E is inside the function in the on click.
And this guy.
Yeah. Because then I think that will give you an error. Okay, it's left there.
Oh yeah. Oh, weird. Maybe it just showed it. What is happening right now? Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, there can only be one. So
Interesting.
after you refresh. Okay. So this is what, so this functionality now works. This is where that filter would come in. So we have this.
Oh, you're not calling the remove from DOM function.
Hmm?
If you're trying to update it.
You what? I'm sorry. So instead of
Oh, it's
console
not-
logging, what we'll do is
Oh,
we'll do
okay.
this. Yeah, and we're gonna say const filtered players. And basically what we're gonna do is we are going to, this is what I was talking about. We're gonna say filtered players. And then we're gonna say players.filter. And I'm gonna say the player where the IDs don't match. So we're gonna get all the players that's ID does not match the player we just deleted. And then we're gonna reset our list to players, to set players. And then our list should then be able to update and have that information. Let's see. Oh, I didn't say that. But I'm having the feeling that then let's test something. Sorry, you guys are just here with my brain not working. Ronaldo. I have a feeling that we're still going to do this and it's not going to refresh. Still going to be the same issue. Nope, it isn't. Okay. My feeling sucked, apparently. Okay. 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 Sorry, guys. This was a trudging along. Okay, so my database is updated. We do have this information. We're able to take this page, right? So let's pull up our actual thing. So we're able to grab this. We're able to create a player. Perfect. We already are handling our validations on the back end. We already have our validations. We have it on the front end and the back end. We're able to do our player dashboard where we're able to grab a player. Then we're able to delete them. And then it sends us back here. We're able to delete from here as well. Now, the only things we have left that we can cover tomorrow because we're already 15 minutes over is we have an edit player. So we need to basically just create this. It's going to look exactly the same. There's just going to be a little bit of functionality that we can pass over. That's going to be sort of simple to get this bonus. And then we will also want to make these links to go that way. So cool. Any questions? I know that today's was kind of a all over class, but thank you guys for being kind and helping for those moments that I totally spaced.
Could we
Woo!
look at the button again?
Teamwork.
been a lot of
Teamwork, y'all. Okay.
Did you have a question, Robert?
Can we look at the button again?
Which one?
The delete, because I know we passed in the ID there, and that all happened. So we have to have the on-click E. And
Yes, the event is what fixed it.
Because if not, that'll just nerf everything. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why, but that's what fixed it.
Well, now that you updated the delete, if you check out the E, does it? But sometimes I feel like it works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. I'm also kind of troubled by the E as well.
I'm just gonna send it and let's try it.
All right.
Iteration over contemplation.
Yeah.
Okay, now it works. Okay, what? And
Sometimes
green earth, man.
I don't know. Sometimes it works, but you did add like the remove from DOM feature. So like I don't know. Sometimes I'm confused about the E. But hey, Michael, I'm sorry. You go ahead and ask
It's
questions.
not too late to bail out of development, friends.
All good. For the exam, if we do turn a link into a button, are we gonna get points off that or?
No,
Okay,
no, you won't. It's just not, I mean, it's more of an argument between developers, so it's not like it's law.
okay.
So no, that's totally fine. Yeah, that'll be okay. As long as the functionality works. Because also you'll have like, when you go to a company, you'll have sort of like company standards and how they do things. And some might do a link and some might do a button. So that's okay. As long as you understand, sort of connect the pieces, you'll be okay.
Dumb question.
No dumb questions, but yeah.
No, for sure. There's totally dumb questions. The ones that aren't asked. But to get Bootstrap, do you have like that installed globally, or do you install that in general? Because I noticed you're just using Bootstrap. You're not importing it.
You can, I actually am just, I just do a link right here in your index.html. I just
Oh,
go
you
to the
can do that?
CDN. Yeah, so if you just Google Bootstrap CDN, it'll just pull up and you get a little link. I
Oh,
just
and you
put that
in
there.
your
You can,
index.html. Okay.
I think you can do npm I bootstrap. I don't
Right, because
remember if it's
that's what I
Bootstrap
thought we
or
had to
React.
do.
I'm sorry?
That's what I thought we had to do is because there's like 3 different ways you can style and
Yeah. Yeah,
JavaScript,
there's a
which
whole
I don't
bunch
like.
of, yeah, there's also like Bootstrap React, Bootstrap, all these different things. I just use the normal Bootstrap because I'm not doing anything, like I'm not creating components per se. I'm just styling a button. So I just use the normal vanilla.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that
Blank
you could put that in
CSS.
there.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I'm
On the
terrible at Bootstrap,
index.html.
but it's better than my CSS.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Yeah, and that's, I mean, this is the extent of, if you guys wanted to, this is the extent really of like formatting and making it look a certain way.
Swag. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Let me do this. See if this changes things. No. I kind of like that more. Still don't really like it. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Tomorrow we will, oh, I see Jonathan, you have your hand. Tomorrow we will make this a link. We'll be able to click and go there. Shouldn't be very challenging at all. And then we'll create our edit and then would you guys prefer, since you guys are the ones that sit here, I'm actually gonna stop, well, I won't stop the recording because I know there's one question. Would you guys prefer that I do that and then deploy during class? Like we do that in office hour, we finish this and then we deploy during class? Or that we deploy, but the project's not done? Yeah, so I think what I'm thinking we'll do is, because tomorrow we are going to, I usually teach on an assignment anyway. So what I'm thinking is we will do the first, we'll finish this tomorrow in class, or sorry, the office hour. I don't think it'll take the full office hour. We'll finish that, answer any questions, do some, kind of things if we wanted. And then we will talk about the belt exam at the beginning of class, and then we'll deploy it and then we'll be good to go. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll walk through. Deployment is really, I'm just gonna go step by step in everything that it says to do. So. Cool. Jonathan, I think you had a question.
Yeah, so on the when you click the delete button, was it like what actually triggered the component to refresh the page, or like to refresh the data? Was it the filter method, or was it listening for the actual state to change?
See, that's a great question that I'm actually going to be looking into after class, because that's what I was anticipating, because we don't have this use navigate, right?
Yeah.
To render. So what I'm assuming, and I'm going to look into this after class, is because we did our set players, it reapplies players, right? Because remember, set players just is our setter for this guy.
Mhm.
And so then when we are running this, because this changed, it updates. Is
Okay.
my assumption.
Because I'm working on the product manager assignment, and it has it set up where you basically have two components on a view component, and you know, when you create a new product, it's supposed to automatically update the list, but they make it sound like when you create a new product, the display all component will automatically recognize the change in state. And I'm not getting it to do that. I mean, I tried setting in the dependency array for use effect. I tried setting like products in there, but then I heard you say in class that that's not a good idea because it could trigger an endless loop.
Yeah, like if I were to change this to players, then every time I'm
Mhm.
setting players, that's going to, and it's going to reset this value. It's going to then trigger this, which then is going to make this run. And it's going to reset the players. And then because it
Yeah.
reset it, it's going to trigger it and so on and so forth. That's my
Okay.
assumption. I'm going to look into that and I'll ask you around tomorrow. And then maybe tomorrow during class, I can give a better, my assumption is because this ran and this got updated,
Mhm.
because we're calling upon it here, that it just noticed the change in state and noticed the change in state and then adjusted accordingly because now
Okay.
the state no longer had anything. It's like a fresh new state is what I'm assuming is what happened.
Yeah. So if that's not working on with my components, is that just a fluke or something? Or
Yeah, great
I mean,
question. It might be because it's on, is it on the same component or is that functionality on another component that's then being transferred?
yeah.
to-
So I've lifted state to the main component so that the product form and product list components are both sharing state.
Sure. What I just, and maybe we can, after this class, kind of dive in and look at that. My first assumption would be since you lifted state, what could happen is when you're on the page, right, the lifted state gets passed down
Mhm.
in through here, right, through our routes. And then that component just has access to the state that it was given.
Mhm.
And because whenever we ran the setter, our app had our state and it's holding it, right? And it changed, but that doesn't spark a redo to the route.
Mhm.
So therefore the component itself is still just going off the state that it was given, which is the original state. And because
Okay.
this one is local state, meaning that the state is within this page, that
Mhm.
because when this changes, when the set players is ran, then it gets adjusted accordingly. That's my sort of first thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Great question. I'm happy to look at that too, and we can try to figure something out. Any other questions before I stop the recording? I know this was a long class, but I just want to make sure you guys are really prepared. I think this is going to mimic the exam in a way that I think you guys, if you guys can do this and this makes sense, you should be good to go. Any other questions?
Thank you all for joining. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah, of course. Call
Troopers.
myself the recording.